Don't settle for bad socks. Get comfort and grip at an affordable price with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Choose from 18 different colors at puregripsocks.com.
Anybody that's into football boots knows that for pretty well the entirety of his career, Messi has worn some form of a custom variation of whatever football boot he is shown to be wearing in the marketing. Which is why it's so exciting that for the first time ever, we as consumers are going to have access to some variation of the custom boots Messi is actually wearing. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the brand new Messi edition Adidas F50 Elite, where just like the other F50 Elite models, you're going to find the same sprint frame 360, sole plate, and stud pattern, but instead of a synthetic fiber touch upper, you're going to find a synthetic hybrid touch upper, which relates this more closely to arguably the best F50 Adizero of all time in the 2014 edition that we've had since that football boot. Also, the burrito-style tongue made from a prime knit material wraps across the top of the foot with a central lacing system, which has been a signature of Messi's custom football boots for the better part of 5 years now. With the Messi version of the top-end F50 retailing for $270, a $10 premium over the normal F50 Elites. However, depending on what type of fit and feel you're looking for, they are definitely worth the extra 10 bucks. With that in mind, as hyped as I am and as hyped as a lot of people are about a Messi version of the new F50 that is truly different from the normal pair, I don't want to discredit the normal F50 Elite because I think it's a fantastic pair of football boots, but depending on what type of fit and feel that you're after, there is definitely an argument to be made that the Messi version of the new F50 is by far the best one, which is exactly what we're going to discuss in today's video as we go over all the details of the new Messi F50s, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you are interested in a pair for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes via the first link down below. And as always, if you enjoy these unsugar-coated, brutally honest reviews on the channel, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2024. So first things first, I just want to quickly comment on the looks because I personally think that these are stunning football boots. However, the design inspiration, which is very clearly taken from the 2011 F50 Adizero Prime, is an interesting choice given the fact that Messi himself never actually wore that version of that generation of 50. He always wore the leather model, which didn't have this kind of border along the bottom. Nonetheless, these look absolutely fantastic, and I also really appreciate, because we have seen Adidas do some pretty ridiculous stuff with Messi branding in the past, but they've kept his branding to a minimum. You can see there's a single subtle Messi logo in the one Adidas stripe. It does say Messi very subtly in that pinstripe just above the F50 branding. And then of course, you do have his signature logo on the back of the heel, the most obvious Messi element. It also has his name there on the bottom of the sole plate, but that's not something that's super visible. Speaking of Messi wearing leather versions of the F50 Adizero, what we have here in this Messi F50 Elite is effectively a more leather-like take on the new F50, where obviously the upper is not made from a natural leather like those early F50 Adizero models would have been and like Messi wore in the earlier days of his career, but instead that thinner, kind of more plasticky fiber touch material that you'll find on the normal F50 Elite models has been swapped out for a much softer, definitely a little bit thicker, and definitely more leather-like hybrid touch synthetic, which is technically the same that you're going to find on the Adidas Predator series right now. That is Hybrid Touch 2.0, but what we have here is honestly significantly softer, and I think because you have a more simple design with the upper without any rubber elements across the upper like the Preds have, the end result is a material that just feels so soft, so natural, so pliable, and so consistent when it comes to touch on the ball. Where obviously when you're talking about a speed boot, you want to typically compare it to other speed boots, but when we're talking about the touch and feel of this upper, both on the ball as well as against your foot, the one boot that immediately came to mind was not a speed boot, but instead the Nike Tiempo Legend 10 Elite and its Fly Touch Plus synthetic upper, a synthetic material designed to mimic the sensation of natural leather. This is effectively a copy-paste of that in terms of feel. And again, I'm not saying Adidas has copied Nike in any way, shape, or form. Hybrid Touch is a synthetic material that's been around for quite some time from them. Again, very famously used on the 2014 F50 Adizero, which is widely regarded by many fans of the series as the best boot of all time. This, however, in my opinion at least, gives those a run for their money. The upper strikes a really nice balance of thickness, pliability, and just general softness against your foot. If the one complaint that you had with the normal F50 Elite is that Fiber Touch upper felt a little bit rigid and plasticky, which I actually think it's quite pliable for how thin it is, this is basically the opposite of that in terms of just really feeling super soft across the entire foot. Minimal break-in time required, but as you wear them in, the material only gets softer. I also really like the fact that you can see these little lines running through kind of this gold section of the upper. That does have that same kind of grippy texture that you find in the sprint web texturing on the normal F50 Elite. It's not quite as rough to the touch, but it does seem to provide the same level of additional grip on the ball, giving you this sensation of kind of a leather-like feel, but with that added bit of texture, which is something that I really appreciate. And the boots as a whole just have a natural sensation on the ball, not too much grip, but also not too slippery. The only thing that I'll say about this upper as kind of a minor complaint is this matte black ring along the bottom is actually slightly firmer than the gold section of the upper. So it almost acts as a little bit of a reinforcement band where you can definitely feel where the material transitions, not to the point where it's uncomfortable, but again, compared to something like the 2014 F50 Adizero, I like the fact that the Hybrid Touch went right to the bottom. And I'm not sure that it doesn't necessarily do that on this football boot, but you can definitely tell along the bottom where it connects to the sole plate, the material is just that little bit more rigid. Across the top of the foot, not much appears to be that different from the normal F50, where you can see it's still a central lacing system with what looks like a standalone tongue, but instead it's actually a burrito style tongue, something that Messi has famously had on his boots for quite some time, and they've even left it disconnected completely on the medial side. So typically what you'll find with a lot of burrito style tongues when we've had them at retail in the past is it will often wrap over to one side, typically from the inside to the outside of the boot. This goes the opposite way, and then it kind of connects by way of some type of stirrup, so it can't come out all the way like this. This is something that's been custom for Messi for a number of years now, basically since the Nemesis line, or technically even the Messi 16.1, which did have a burrito style tongue that wrapped the opposite way. Obviously that's something that Messi really liked, and he just carried it over into custom variations of every boot after that. So effectively what this is a thin layer of this elasticated knit that doesn't have a ton of stretch because of this gold kind of fuse that they put on top for the sake of branding, but it's just really thin, wraps perfectly across your foot. Because it doesn't have much structure, it immediately matches the shape of your foot directly across the top, and then it's just a matter of kind of tucking this part in the side, making sure nothing folds over. But the fact that this kind of just opens up completely makes putting these boots on and taking them off significantly easier than most other products, certainly when compared to the normal F50 Elite, which has that kind of compression fit system that I'm personally not in love with, but it's not a detriment to the overall experience. This is more or less as traditional as it gets. And overall, just a really cool thing that we don't often see in the world of retail football boots. Moving to the rear, the Messi version is the same as all the other F50s, where you have a low-cut design with a little bit of an extended back with this kind of squared off shape. The inside heel lining material is this really soft microfiber, plenty of padding, very reminiscent of kind of the X18 days of the Adidas Speed Boot series, for those that remember that far back. But overall, super comfortable, great lockdown through the heel. Then the insole is fully removable, and again, pretty much the same across the board that you're going to find with all the new F50s. It's got this really soft kind of microfiber liner on the surface, some perforations through the heel, and it's made from a single layer of this white foam. These are the speed ones, which also come alongside the comfort ones included inside the box, which are hardly any different. But the fact that you get an extra set of insoles at all is still a really nice touch. As for the base, like I mentioned earlier, other than the Messi logo there in the forefoot, there is no difference here with the Sprint Frame 360 setup compared to all the other F50 Elites. You still get that external heel counter in that kind of iconic and classic shaping originally introduced in the Sprint Frame on the 2010 F50 Adi Zero. It's a more flexible sole plate with these 3 stiffener bars running through the middle. Definitely more on the simple side as far as what you're going to find from most top-end speed boots. Obviously the new F50 Plus with its kind of foam inserts on the side and raised forefoot is what you'd be after if you're looking for that more tech-focused kind of responsive feel from a sole plate. But Messi as a whole, very simple with his football boots, obviously doesn't like a lot of change, hence all the custom variations of basically the same thing over the years. This I think is very fitting, although I'm not entirely sure that he uses exactly this. I think his are still a little bit different and truly custom one-of-ones, but overall, really good sole plate if you're looking for something that is thin and overall more on the flexible side with an FG stud pattern that again kind of trends on the middle ground of being super aggressive but also still having that freedom to twist and pivot, certainly with these kind of more rounded style studs that you have through the forefoot. It's a very well-rounded sole plate and stud pattern, definitely nothing super negative to say about it, but certainly if you want something more aggressive, you can get more aggressive setups in an FG stud pattern from other speed boots. And then there's the weight, where the obvious comparison is the normal F50 Elite versus the Messi variation with its slightly thicker, more padded hybrid touch upper versus the super thin fiber touch one you'll find on the normal version. Both in the same size 9.5 US. We'll start off with the normal F50 Elite, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.7 ounces, the equivalent of 190 grams exactly. Remember those numbers, and we'll throw on the Messi variation, and you can see that they weigh in at 7 ounces exactly, the equivalent of 198 grams, which is a total weight difference of 8 grams in favor of the normal F50 Elite. But realistically, when comparing these two football boots, the difference that you're going to notice has nothing to do with the weight. That is a very minor thing. The big difference is how they fit and feel on feet, because these two uppers are completely different from each other. On feet, the Messi F50s feel absolutely fantastic. And I know comfort is very much a subjective thing where everybody likes something a little bit different, but if you're comparing the feel on feet of this version of the F50 compared to the more raw fiber touch synthetic of the normal F50 Elite, the out-of-the-box comfort is simply unmatched. These just have a softer, more pliable, just pretty much ready to go right out of the box feel about them. Again, not to say that the normal F50s are uncomfortable, because I definitely don't find that to be the case. I think they're actually some of the more comfortable speed boots out there right now, but these really do have that leather-like sensation in a lot of ways. And of course, it's not a true replacement for leather. If you compare these to something like a Mizuno Morelia Neo 4, a made in Japan model in particular, those definitely have overall a more soft feel because of that natural kangaroo leather material. But this hybrid touch, certainly when compared to the Predator 24 Elite, which I think a lot of people will want to automatically compare these to, feels significantly softer. And again, the best comparison that I can draw is that 2014 F50 Adi Zero, which is something that I think so many people are going to be super pleased about. The overall shaping of the boot pretty well remains the same compared to the normal F50 Elite in that it's a tight fit, but it's definitely not overly narrow by any means at all. Plenty of width through the midfoot, forefoot, and toe box area. The only thing, like I mentioned earlier, because of that kind of band along the bottom in matte black, there's a little bit of like an embossed divide between the black and gold, which does give the upper a little bit of added structure in that area. area. So it's lower volume along the edges than what you're going to find from the normal version of the F50, which isn't really an issue. It's just something that you should be aware of if you are planning on picking these up before buying them. So if you need extra volume, particularly right at the tip of the toes, these will have a little bit of a lower volume fit in that area. From a width perspective though, because of that kind of open burrito style tongue, you have plenty of expansion. They're super easy to get on, and of course, tie up with the laces. I wouldn't necessarily say that these are going to be suitable for absolutely everybody. If you have excessively wide feet, I think certain football boots, certainly in the speed boot category, can always be a little bit tricky, but this is genuinely one of those boots that really does feel like it's going to work super well for the vast majority of foot types. So again, unless you typically have issues with fit, I wouldn't expect to have too many problems with these. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, I have to say, I'm not only super impressed with the Messi F50 Elite, I'm super impressed with Adidas as a whole and the direction the brand is headed in. Gold Messi boots with the graphics of one of the most iconic F50 Adizero models of all time, released for what is likely his final Copa America, would have sold out no matter what. And they could have easily just given us a boot that looks like this on the standard F50 Elite, but they didn't do that. They went the extra mile. The enthusiast community loves the hybrid touch of the 2014 F50 Adizero. They've given it to us on this new F50 Elite. The enthusiast community knows about the custom burrito style tongue that Messi has had on his boots for such a long time now. They've given us that on this boot. That's a detail that they did not have to include. The vast majority of consumers won't know the difference or the reason why it's there, but the fact that we have it and also the fact that it feels so good is something that, in my opinion, is just so special. This is a football boot that shows that Adidas is listening to their enthusiast fan base, and the fact that it's turned out as great as it has only goes to show that maybe there is a reason why people ask for these things over and over again. Is this the best version of the F50 Elite for everybody? No, not necessarily. I think if you like that more raw, thin, barefoot feel, the normal F50 Elite, whatever variation it may be, even the F50 Plus, that fiber touch upper is fantastic. But for those that like the more leather-like sensation, something a little bit softer, a little bit more pliable, and just generally slightly more padded, with of course the super cool factor of that Messi burrito style tongue, I don't think there's much to argue. This would be the best version of the new F50 for you. It's definitely my favorite.